Welcome back to our YouTube channel, The Book Digest. In today's episode, we're diving into a powerful and practical summary of The Systems Thinker by Albert Rutherford. And let me tell you, this book has a core idea that might just change the way you see, well, everything. What if our most frustrating, recurring problems aren't because we're not working hard enough, but because we're just not looking at them in the right way?
So let's start with a big question. What if we're all stuck trying to solve the wrong problem?
I mean, does this sound familiar to you? You fix one little bug in your code and suddenly two brand new ones appear out of nowhere. Or a company tries a new policy to make things more efficient, but instead everybody gets demoralized and everything grinds to a halt. It's the super frustrating cycle of unintended consequences that the book says is a trap we build for ourselves. Okay, so here's the deal. We're all taught to think in a straight line. A causes B. Simple, right? But Rutherford argues that reality isn't a straight line at all. It's more like a tangled web of circles, because B almost always loops back around and affects A again. We get so focused on the individual pieces of the puzzle, but the real action, or the real chaos, is happening in the connections between those pieces.
So if we're going to break out of that simple cause and effects trap and start seeing the whole system, we need a new language, a new way to even talk about what's going on. And it all starts with a simple foundational idea, the stock.
Think of a stock as a systems memory, or like a snapshot in time. It's just a pile of something. It could be something you can literally count, like the dollars in your bank account. Or it could be something totally intangible, like the amount of trust in a relationship. It's the current state of things.
But here's the thing. A stock on its own is, well, it's just a number. It's kind of boring. It doesn't do anything by itself. The action, the movement, all comes from the flows. These are what make the stock go up or down. You got inflows that fill it up and outflows that drain it. This is the engine that actually drives change.
And this is where the classic bathtub analogy just makes it all click. The amount of water in the tub, that's your stock. You can't just stare at it and wish for it to be higher or lower. The only way to change the water level is by messing with the flows, cranking up the faucet or pulling the plug. And that little insight right there, that you have to influence the flows and then wait, is so important. There's always a delay. And that lag between what we do and the result we get is exactly why we get things so wrong so often. It's what leads us to the real engines of how systems behave. Okay, now this is where the magic really happens. The system gets truly interesting when the level of the stock itself starts to control its own flows. That's what creates a feedback loop. It's the thing that turns a simple, straight line of cause and effect into a circle that feeds on itself. And you know what's wild? It turns out that pretty much every system you can think of is driven by just two fundamental kinds of loops. You've got reinforcing loops, which just amplify everything, and balancing loops, which try to keep everything stable. Reinforcing loops, man, these are the engines of exponential change. They can lead to explosive growth or a total collapse. It's that classic snowball effect. You know, money earning interest in a bank account, or a rumor just spreading like wildfire online. The more you have, the faster you get even more. Then you've got the other side of the coin, balancing loops. These guys are these stabilizers. They're always trying to hit a target and close a gap. A thermostat is the perfect example. It's always working to keep the room at that one perfect temperature. Your own body does this constantly. Balancing loops resist change, and they push everything back toward equilibrium. So just being able to ask, hey, is this a reinforcing loop or a balancing loop? That's already a huge step. The answer tells you a lot about where a situation is headed. But it gets even cooler, because once you know about loops, you start seeing the same patterns, the same stories, everywhere. And once you can spot these loops, you start recognizing these recurring patterns in totally different situations. They're called system archetypes. Think of them like the common plots you see in movies. They're just blueprints for recurring problems that show up again and again. Let's check out one of the most common ones, and honestly, one of the most dangerous: shifting the burden. This is the trap of the quick fix. So a real problem pops up, but we just slap a Band-Aid on the symptom because it feels good to get that immediate relief. Whew, pressure's off. But the whole time, the underlying issue is just festering and getting worse, and our ability to actually fix it is withering away. And this creates this really insidious dependency. The book gives a perfect example: taking painkillers for chronic pain.
The pill is the quick fix. It makes the symptom go away so there's no urgency to do physical therapy or figure out the real root cause. But over time, the actual problem gets worse and you become even more dependent on that quick fix. Or how about this classic, the tragedy of the commons? This is what happens when a shared resource gets totally destroyed because everyone is just acting logically in their own self-interest. Like the shared coffee pot at the office. For any one person, it makes perfect sense to just take the last cup. But when everyone does it, the collective result is a tragedy. No more coffee for anybody.
See, the power here is that once you can name these patterns, you can start to see a way out of their traps. So what does this all add up to? What's the big takeaway from learning to see the world this way?
At the end of the day, systems thinking is all about making a few fundamental shifts in your mind. It's about consciously going from focusing on the individual parts to seeing the whole thing, from just reacting to events to understanding the long-term patterns. And maybe most importantly, from treating symptoms to digging deep for the root causes that are hidden in those feedback loops. And this really requires a little humility. It means we have to accept that our actions are going to have delayed effects and consequences we didn't expect. It's about choosing that difficult long-term solution over the easy temporary fix, because that's the only place where real lasting change can actually happen.
Honestly, adopting this mindset is kind of like getting a new superpower. It gives you a framework for understanding the crazy complex world around you, not by ignoring the complexity, but by seeing the elegant circular patterns underneath it all. So the question isn't just what system in your life you'll see differently now. Maybe it's a team dynamic at work, or a recurring argument in your family, or a bad habit you can't kick. The real question is, now that you can see the loops, what's the one small change you could make to a flow that might, over time, change everything?